Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you here to call the meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Health. I am Danny McGill, the MLA for Pictou Centre and the chair of this committee. Today we'll hear from IWK Health and Nova Scotia Health regarding surgical advancements in robotics. Reminder, please set your phones to silent. Reminder again, you don't have to touch your microphone. The staff will take care of that. Now I'll ask committee members to please introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. It's great to be here. My name is IWK Fadari, the MLA for Clayton Park West.
Good afternoon, Julie Van Exen, MLA for King South.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice seeing you. Ryan Robichaud from Clare.
Good afternoon, Nick Hilton, MLA for Yarmouth.
Davies, I'm the Chief of Pediatric Surgery.
Welcome. It's good afternoon. It's great to have you all here. I'm Becky Druin, MLA from Lunenburg West.
Hi, good afternoon. Derek Mumbercat, the MLA for Sydney Member 2.
Thanks for coming. Rod Wilson, MLA for Halifax Armdale.
Hi, Lisa Lachance, MLA for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Okay, thank you. And for the purpose of answer, I'd also like to recognize the presence of Acting Chief Legislative Counsel Genevieve Harvey and Legislative Committee Clerk Robin Dan. Now I'll ask the witnesses to please introduce themselves, starting on the left.
Dafydd Davies, I'm the Chief of Pediatric Surgery at IWK Health.
Gail, I'm the Chief of Surgery for Dalhousie University and for Nova Scotia Health Central Zone.
Eileen MacGibbon, Vice President of Operations for Central Zone.
Greg Bailey, I'm the Chief of Urology for Nova Scotia Health Central Zone and Department Head for Dalhousie.
Perfect, thank you very much. I believe there are some opening remarks. We'll start with Dr. Davies.
So thank you for inviting me to share my insights about robotics and surgery, specifically as it pertains to children and youth in Nova Scotia and the Maritime Provinces. I'm a pediatric general and thoracic surgeon, and I'm the head of pediatric surgery overseeing our 24 subspecialty surgeons at the IWK. For simplicity, I like to break robotics and surgery into two categories. Navigational, where robots are used to guide surgeons to place implants in optimal positions or stay within certain boundaries, and manipulative, where a robot functions as an extension of surgeons' hands to improve the movements of the patient. Both are rapidly expanding in use and new technologies. As I'll describe below, we've already ventured into some navigational robotics and anticipate further growth in that area before we adopt more of the manipulative strategies. The good and the bad of my job is that children are mostly healthy, so the volumes of operations that we perform can never match those of adults. What that means for emerging technologies is that biomedical companies can't sell enough product to make return on their investment when they develop instruments sized for children. This slows our growth in our field. We're often behind our adult-serving colleagues. Internationally, robotics is picking up steam for adolescent patients, but has a long way to go when it comes to children and small infants. I think the key considerations we must wrestle with when we look at the future of surgical robotics in Nova Scotia are the cost implications and the inevitable need to start building the foundations so we do not fall behind the rest of Canada and the world. Robotics will become part of surgery for all ages, whether we like it or not. We all must understand the massive cost differences. A common operation such as removing someone's gallbladder goes from about $1,000 of disposable costs, that's just the things we throw out at the end of surgery, to up to about $15,000 when done with the Da Vinci robot. That's not accounting for the upfront cost of buying the robot, the training the staff, etc. If you look at outcomes, there's minimal benefit to that individual patient. However, if you want to have surgical teams skilled enough to take advantage of robotics for complex surgery, they need to be doing high volumes of the more basic things. While there are benefits to the surgeon and patients, robotic operations usually take longer to complete, especially with manipulative technology. In our current situation with growing waitlists and limited resources, we will need to ensure close oversight and control of who is given access to the training, as well as the robotic tools themselves. We must gradually adopt technologies to make the best strategic use of our resources to meet our goal of staying current without breaking the bank. That being said, the technology is here to stay. New graduates will be trained to operate with robots and expect them to be available when they're hired as surgeons. We will need to have active programs if we wish to recruit good surgeons and meet our future needs. When it comes to the IWK and the resource constraints we currently face, we are not actively using robotics in surgery. That being said, our robotic surgeons have done several cases in teenagers using the navigation system currently at the Halifax Infirmary. These were some of the first adolescent robotic scoliosis surgeries performed in Canada. Over the next 5 to 10 years, the IWK hopes to implement navigational robotics for orthopedics and neurosurgery routinely. We have a keen young surgeon taking it upon himself to gain experience and training, and we hope to further support that program. And it will undoubtedly have spillover benefits to neurosurgery and possibly other specialties as well. Within the next 10 to 15 years, new surgeons coming out of training will be seeking careers where they can use the latest technology, including robotics, both in navigational and manipulative contexts. And we're going to be looking at those specialties closely to develop a robotics strategy that will guide our investments in the future. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for that, Dr. Davies. And I believe the other opening statement will come from Ms. MacGibbon.
As the Vice President of Operations for Nova Scotia Health Central Zone, it is my absolute privilege to share our advancements in surgical robotics and our vision for future improvements on a provincial scale. I'm joined today by some of our biggest champions for surgical robotics, Dr. Gail Darling, Central Zone Head of Surgery, Thoracic Surgeon, and Co-Chair of our Steering Committee for our new Nova Scotia Health Centre of Excellence in Robotics at the QE2. And Dr. Greg Bailey, our Head of Urology and a urological surgeon, who was instrumental in bringing our first surgical robot and the innovative prostate and kidney cancer treatment it supports to life, as well as our partner in care, Dr. Dafydd Davies, Head of Surgery for IWK Health, which partnered with us on Canada's first robotic-assisted surgery for pediatric scoliosis. When our first robot was launched in 2019, we embraced its potential: greater precision, improved patient outcomes, efficiencies, and undeniable recruitment advantages, and a catalyst for growth. To now share the rare distinction of operating 8 robots across multiple specialties and bolstering training in our simulation lab is nothing short of amazing. Today, we will reflect on the ground we have covered, share the measurable benefits robotic surgeries offer our patients, teams, and our entire health system, and acknowledge the partnerships and generosity that have led us here. Our efforts have not only established Nova Scotia as a provider of robotic-assisted surgeries, but firmly positioned us as a respected leader in this innovative care. Our QE2 teams led first for Atlantic Canada, including using robotics to assist with urological and gynecological cancer surgeries and being on the leading edge for brain and spinal surgery. They were the second in Canada to use the Mako system for partial and total knee replacement surgeries and are among the first using robotics to treat bladder and testes cancer. With the incredible support of the Dartmouth General Hospital Foundation, our team was the first to use the orthopedic robot for a total hip replacement as well. Making history and expanding our fleet is exciting, but first and foremost, these investments are about our patients. Robotics precision allows surgeons to target disease, preserving healthy tissue, and supporting faster recovery, shorter stays in hospital, and reduce blood loss, pain, and complications. Robotics amplify the gains from minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery in the 1990s to even greater precision and customized treatment for some of the most complex patient needs. We are immensely proud to be leaders in this evolution. Nearly 4,000 patients have benefited from our programs and our tenfold increase in robotic surgeons, including patients with urological and gynecological cancers, cancers of the lung, colon, liver, ear, nose, and throat. Many brain, spinal, and orthopedic surgery patients are benefiting as well. I often hear from surgeons who see the difference robotics are making for their patients' prognosis, recovery, and quality of life. Our data clearly reveals return on our investments. Robotic surgery patients are going home sooner, not being readmitted as often, and seeking less follow-up care in our emergency departments. Our hospital stays are down by 3.3 days on average. Our readmissions are down by more than 30%, and post-operative emergency department visits are down too, which has returned 12,000 hours to care for other patients in our system. We have come so far so fast with quality, safety, and data as our guideposts and patients at the heart of each decision, and we will continue to position Nova Scotia as a leader through our new Centre of Excellence. The QE2 Foundation has supported the robotic surgery program through $17 million in funding to date and has committed an additional $20 million to the Centre of Excellence over the next 7 years. Our steering committee is in place, and working groups are focused on 5 provincial key strategies aligned with government's Action for Health plan. From exploration to implementation, the Centre of Excellence will ensure a structured approach to expanding services here and across all of Nova Scotia to maintain positive returns and ensure programs are sustainable from a quality and funding perspective. A strong workforce is vital too, and we will keep building capacity among our teams and aim to establish Nova Scotia as a training center for residents and other surgeons. We can directly attribute the recruitment and retention of 9 surgeons to our robotics program so far. And with residents increasingly exposed to robotics and expecting to use these techniques post-fellowship, we must remain competitive. Leveraging our infrastructure and talent to serve as a training center will help us attract top talent to the QE2, Dartmouth General Hospital, and across all of Nova Scotia. We wouldn't be here without the support of government, our teams and partners, and our incredible foundations. The Dartmouth General Hospital Foundation, the donors who supported our first robotics program outside the QE2, and the QE2 Foundation and their donors, from individuals and businesses to visionary donors like the Orchid Women's Health Initiative and countless more. They've helped us create a robust foundation to expand robotics to even more patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. MacGibbon. So we'll now move on to our question and answer period. Each caucus will get 20 minutes, plus a second round of approximately 10 minutes as time allows. The question will wrap up at 2:50 p.m. Okay, so we'll start with the NDP Caucus. MLA LaChance.
Great, thank you so much for being here. I have a couple of numbers questions to get us started. How many surgeons in the province are actually trained to do robot-assisted surgeries? And how many surgeries, robot-assisted surgeries occurred last year?
Dr. Darling?
Darling, yes. There are, the robotic surgery that has occurred in the HRM, either at the QE2 or the Dartmouth General. There are surgeons in other jurisdictions who are trained, especially in urology, but also orthopedic surgery. There are no general surgeons trained as yet to do robotic surgery. In terms of the numbers, we have 31 surgeons currently in the HRM, mostly at the QE2, doing robotic surgery, and we've done about 3,900 robotic cases to date. Most of those are orthopedic procedures done both at QE2 and at Dartmouth. We also have urology surgeries done at the QE2 because they were the first to get the robot. Dr. Davies differentiated what he called navigational versus manipulative. So the manipulative part is the Da Vinci robot, which is a soft tissue robot. So that's what's primarily used by urology, general surgery, thoracic surgery. So urology's had use of the Da Vinci robot since 2019. Also gynecology has been using it since 2019, and a little bit for ENT surgery for base of tongue cancers. We got the second Da Vinci last fall, and that allowed us to open it up to thoracic surgery, the general surgeons, specifically colorectal surgery, and the liver pancreas surgeons.
MLA LaChance.
And thank you. And if you don't have the numbers here today, maybe the clerk could follow up in terms of, I'm curious about whether the number has been increasing. So you said 3,900 to date. Let me go for my next question, and then, but yeah, so I'm curious, like, how many last year, and is that, like, is it increasing year over year?
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Dr. Darling?
Oh. It's definitely increasing year over year. We're looking up the exact numbers. But about 300 since January when we onboarded the colorectal surgeons, the thoracic surgeons, and the liver surgeons.
Order. MLA LaChance is ready to ask her next question. And just a reminder that the mics will turn on automatically. You don't have to press any buttons. So MLA LaChance.
And so one of the areas that you mentioned that we have some capacity in is gynecological cancer surgeries. However, we know that Nova Scotians who need gynecological care wait 3 times longer than other Canadians, and actually the current worst surgical times in the province for Nova Scotians are for gynecology. Is there a target time to increase gynecological cancer surgeries, and what is that plan there?
Dr. Darling?
So we recognized their need when we got the second Da Vinci. So they were already using the first Da Vinci for gynecologic cancers. When we got the second Da Vinci, I'm head of the Department of Surgery. Gynecology is not in my department, but I said they need it. So we said, okay, you're gonna use this new robot also. Like, we're not gonna just keep it for us. The gynecologists recognized the problem and have taken on a specific strategy for dealing with gynecologic cancers. So in Halifax, they're doing the high-risk cancers, and the lower-risk cancers are being done in the communities by gynecologists. So the robot has enabled our gynecologic oncology surgeons to provide minimally invasive surgery to women who would otherwise not be candidates for minimally invasive surgery. So minimally invasive, small incisions, cameras, and so on. But even some of these women could not have laparoscopic surgery, and then they would have to have open surgery. And so by kind of triaging it, they've been able to reduce the wait times.
MLA LaChance?
And I apologize for rushing through. We have very short amount of time with you at the table. So, is there a target for target wait time for robot-assisted gynecological cancer surgeries, and how often is that target being met?
So, Dr. Darling?
I cannot answer that specifically.
I don't have the target information.
Ms. MacGibbon?
Yeah, I can provide that I absolutely can provide that to you by specialty area.
MLA LaChance, Dr. Darling?
I might note that when we look at their wait times overall, not specifically robotics, but overall, their wait times have come down substantially. We gave them extra OR day, we gave them extra robotic access, so I'm not sure about the robot, but overall, their wait times are within what they think is a target.
Thank you. MLA LaChance?
Okay. That's helpful. I think from publicly available information, though, the worst surgical wait times in this province are for gynecology. So that would seem to me to be an area where there should be greater emphasis and greater use of this. So I guess my question is, what is being done to decrease the wait times and ensure that women and gender diverse Nova Scotians get the care they need in a timely fashion?
Dr. Bailey?
I'd just like to clarify something. So I think it's important to understand that gynecologic surgery there's general gynecology and there's oncology. So there's the cancer, and those surgeries are being done and the wait times are being monitored closely, and many of those are being done robotically or laparoscopically. And that's the emphasis of the robot that we have. Access to health care for women with gynecologic problems I agree, it's outside, the wait times are long, but that's not the same population that is being directed toward the robotic surgery. It's the cancer for the gynecology cancers that are being directed for the robotic surgery. I think the big discrepancy in wait time is the non-cancer access to gynecologic care.
Okay, thank you. MLA LaChance?
And that's helpful. But, my understanding is that there's no wait time data actually currently published for gynecology. So I do understand the distinction. But I think this is one of the reasons why, we think there should be a women's health strategy, so that we are thinking about where are the differences, where are the lacks, if we're, focused on, really important things like prostate and testes and urology cancers, important, but that doesn't look at the needs of women and gender diverse Nova Scotians. So, I do want to talk a bit about more general gynecological care. So in the spring, we heard from Cassidy Walker, who waited 4 long years in pain on a wait list for care at the IWK. She eventually gave up on receiving care in our province and spent $60,000 out of province for an endometriosis diagnosis and surgery in Maine. And the surgery she ended up having can be done using robot-assisted technology. to date, have the surgical robots in Nova Scotia been used to perform endometriosis surgery?
Dr. Darling,
Not to my knowledge.
MLA LaChance,
And why is that?
Dr. Darling,
The robotic surgery is done by the gynecologists who are oncology surgeons, so cancer surgery only. And I believe that endometriosis surgery would be done at the IWK. Is that not correct?
Dr. Davies,
As far as I know, Dr. Jim Bentley is the head of gynecology and obstetrics for Nova Scotia Health as well as the IWK, and so he would have the kind of more better details about exactly what their strategy is. To my knowledge, they have focused, like Dr. Bailey suggested, the use of the robot specifically for oncology. I don't know what their plan is whether they're planning to expand to endometriosis or not in the future.
thank you. MLA LaChance,
You explained that there's a steering committee and a strategy that's located at the Center of Excellence. And so I'm wondering how those strategies are developed. So if you look at, the fact that the worst surgical wait times in the province are for gynecology, has the steering committee discussed making use of this technology to address some of the worst times that we have worst wait times we have in the province?
Dr. Darling,
I guess I would say, first of all, the steering committee, the Center of Excellence is on robotics, and we do have representation from the gynecologists, so it's definitely on the agenda. I would say that endometriosis surgery can be done laparoscopically, which can be done at the IWK currently. It does not, and I think that's an important thing to note, that robotic surgery is a technique or technology, but any operation, there's a goal of the operation, what do you want to achieve, and then there's the part, like how you're going to do it. And robotics just offer one way of doing it. But laparoscopic surgery for women who can have laparoscopic surgery is just as good, I think, in my opinion.
thank you. MLA LaChance with 9 minutes remaining.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think, what I'm trying to sort of understand is how decisions are made. Like, could there, if it hasn't been explicitly evaluated, women wait in pain when they're waiting for endometriosis treatment and surgery. It is painful every day, every month. It affects people's ability to go to school, to work, to participate in family life. It's very debilitating. So anything that we could do to lessen those wait times and lessen that experience of pain for Nova Scotians and get them back to their lives. So we want people at work. We want people to be able to parent well. We want people to volunteer at church, like all the things that people who are in pain can't do. So have there been discussions about better connecting the IWK folks who really focus on this with your steering committee? So, is the head of gynecology or Dr. Davies on the steering committee at the Center of Excellence?
Ms. MacGibbon?
Yes. We do have representation from the IWK for the obvious reasons related to gynecological surgery. And I think it's important to know, because you raise a very good point around how we would see the evolution of robotics as it relates to surgical access for gynecology patients in Nova Scotia. And I think the gynecologists, specifically, as Dr. Bailey said, the gynae oncologists have prioritized those with cancer and high BMIs who are not candidates for laparoscopic surgery first. And relatively speaking, they are still in the earlier stages of using robotic surgery and expanding their access. And for us, there's no one thing that improves surgical access for patients in Nova Scotia. It's a multifaceted strategy, and robotics is just one, because we are finding improvements in efficiency in the system that enable better access overall. And I know from talking with the gynecologists and the gynae oncologists, their desire is to do exactly as you're describing, move in that direction as we evolve the program and enable increased capacity overall to their service and specialty.
MLA LaChance?
And I wanted to touch on, in terms of the orthopedic surgeries and some of the wait times that currently still exist. So, when I look at the most recently available public data, we see that Nova Scotians, 50% of people get their first consult within 186 days of being referred. So that means 50% get it after like more than 186 days. And the wait times at the 90th percentile are, in Dartmouth, it's 488 days. In the Valley, it's 575 days. Certainly, you can see the difference at QE2 is 333 days. And I can table this, but this is from the public website. So in terms of the regional discrepancies, what is the strategy taking into account to make sure that that the benefits of robotic surgery are not just in the HRM?
Dr. Darling?
I could speak to the orthopedic joint replacement program in general. This is our biggest program. More patients need orthopedic surgery than any other subspecialty in surgery. A couple of things that have happened that have allowed the QE2 in Dartmouth to improve their numbers. One is the government put in funding for new operating rooms. Dr. Bill Oxner is head of the Division of Orthopedic Surgery, strategized to make Dartmouth a center of excellence for high throughput, high quality arthroplasty. He recruited three, I think, new orthopedic surgeons who are at Dartmouth. And so we were able to utilize the government's investment in OR time to, do more orthopedic joint replacements. The other thing Dr. Oxner did was not him alone, but he and his team developed what are called orthopedic assessment clinics. So many patients who have joint problems, arthritic joints and so on, require assessment, but they don't all need surgery. So these assessment centers allow them to see more patients, in other words, reduce the wait time to consult, and then to select the patients, and they have their criteria, select the patients who will benefit from surgery. And that has allowed us in the QE2 in Dartmouth to reduce the wait times. And I think we were #1 in Canada on Kai-High this week.
Thank you. MLA LaChance?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, so my question was actually not what's happening in the HRM. My question was actually sort of what's the plan to even out those wait times in rural areas. So, for hip replacement at the Valley Regional, the consult wait time for the 50th percentile, so again, 50% of people wait longer than this, but the 50th percentile is 362 days, which is a whole year of discomfort, pain, inability, again, to do things like work, volunteer, be part of community. And to your point, perhaps they don't need surgery, but the whole point is that they're waiting, and that's sort of the next question that needs to be answered. And then the surgery wait time at 50% is another 164 days. So people are losing years of their life, and often at a really transitional point in time. So they might still be working, but maybe they're close to retirement. But this often forces people out of the workforce at this age. So I'm wondering, to be specific, let's take the Valley. What is the target in terms of decreasing the wait times for, let's say, hip replacements at the Valley Regional, both consult and surgery if needed?
Dr. Darling?
I can't specifically give you a number for the target. I can say that Nova Scotia Health implemented the OCEAN centralized referral system. So a family doctor or any doctor could refer their patient in through the OCEAN system. And this is to kind of is aimed at reducing the wait time for consultation. And the patient has the option of accepting the first available provider, i.e. the soonest appointment, or choosing to wait for someone in their where they live or somewhere else. So I mean, the government and Nova Scotia Health have funded that with the goal of reducing wait times, not just for joint replacement, but for all surgeries. In terms of what the Valley is actually doing, in terms of what their target is, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know that answer.
MLA, a chance with 1 minute, 11 seconds remaining.
And so who would be supporting, for instance, the Valley Regional in looking at those wait times and trying to address them? Whose role is that?
Ms. MacGibbon?
So I think it really is important to note that everything we do is strategy across all of Nova Scotia Health, and that's the benefit of having one structure, one organization reflecting healthcare across the entire province. So as Dr. Darling said, we have an ability now to have a line of sight on wait times in all of our areas where we're offering surgical services across all of our sites in Nova Scotia. So we have clear awareness on where patients are in terms of their wait times. We also have a significant number of strategies underway to find efficiency, optimize the use of our operating rooms, and we have lists of actions and strategies and tactical components of that work that demonstrate the improvement we're making year over year. We know the demands for orthopedic surgery, to your example, are very high. They're high across Canada. Every jurisdiction is challenged with the demands for orthopedic access to surgery and operating room time. But I think it's really important to note that as we look at this as a system, we also have the evolution of robotics to centers like Valley Regional with significant interest from their team to move in this direction. And
Sorry, 20 minutes has expired. So we'll now move on to the Liberal Caucus. We'll start with MLA Druin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to all of you for being here. In January 2026, the Auditor General's Office released a report on the Action for Health's key performance indicators, and the office found that many of the KPIs had ineffective or no benchmarks for success. Recognize absolutely that you and your teams rely heavily on data and access and use that to assess the success and the output of measures that are in place. And VP MacGibbon, you outlined some of the data that is demonstrating the work that's being done. But having said that, having it rolled into KPIs that Nova Scotians can understand and be able to measure against, I think, is incredibly important, as illustrated by the AG's report. So in light of that, we know the robots have been positive for surgical teams and patients, but we've also heard about the cost and the factors that go into assessing the success of that is not just limited to current surgeries or output, but also future training. So in light of all of that, can you explain more clearly what goals the province, NSH, and the IWK have for the future of surgical robotics? And what accountability measures are in place now and that we would expect to put into the future to ensure we're meeting those targets?
Dr. Darling?
First of all, I guess I would like to applaud Nova Scotia Health for their data and analytics arm, which do give us the data, which has been incredibly helpful. In terms of our outcome measures or ROI for robotics, we've already spoken about the reduced length of stay, the reduced emergency room visits, and reduced readmissions. And those were all things that we hoped would happen with robotics, and now we know they have. And so those are benefits not just to the system, but those are real benefits to the system in that, more patients can get through the emergency room, more patients can get admitted to hospital. Robots have generally fewer complications, so then patients don't require revisional surgery or secondary surgeries. So those benefits are real. The other things are things that are maybe a little harder to measure, but things, for example, blood transfusions. Now, most surgery that is done in an open manner will require blood to be cross-matched, which means that the lab has to take a couple of units or 4 units of blood, and they have to do all this special testing, and then they have to set those units of blood aside for that patient having that surgery. We know now that with the robotic surgery, we almost never have to give a transfusion. And so with our anesthesia colleagues and our peri-op group, we now have guidelines that say, okay, for this robotic procedure, we don't have to cross-match the blood. We can just do a type-in screen. And so those units of blood can stay in the blood bank and be available to other people. Now, that's a benefit to the system. We think it'll save us $1 million a year at the QE2. But it's also a benefit to that patient because blood transfusions have risks, not only of immediate risks like transfusion reactions, but downstream effects, especially for cancer surgery, because it can affect their immunity. So we're looking at that stuff. We're looking in terms of training, and this is all being done through the Center of Excellence. The data that we can abstract from the Da Vinci robot in particular can look at how many moves a surgeon makes to accomplish a particular goal. And so that we can, and the new Da Vincis have 2 consoles, so we can have a resident on one console and the staff surgeon on the other. And we can look at how the resident is doing and how many moves, and at what point do they become competent. And we can translate in the future to becoming a training center for robotics, and we've actually already kind of started this in urology and orthopedic surgery, but in future building it to the Da Vinci model, where we can have surgeons coming from all over the province to train, and we will be able to tell them when they've done enough that they're competent. And we'll be able to do that for our residents as well, so that we'll be we'll be able to attract high-quality residents to our programs. We'll be able to train the surgeons of Nova Scotia, and we'll be able to train. There is no training center for Da Vinci across Canada. We could be the first.
MLA Druin.
Thank you. Okay, and I appreciate that. I think it's very clear that the benefits that the robotics offer and the specialists who operate them are very clear. Not only to the system but also to the patients. I'm interested though in the way that gets reflected in KPIs and the setting of KPI benchmarks, because there's a difference between implementing a change and then identifying the improvements that happen after that change versus strategically identifying benchmarks in advance and measuring against those. And I think that that's a really key role for government to be able to understand if the return on investment is appropriate or more investment should be made in other areas. And so I'm wondering about that specific question. This is all great data, but how does it get translated into those KPIs that the Auditor General is referencing, so that Nova Scotians can understand in advance what the goals are for this and then be able to determine on an ongoing basis if we're hitting them or not?
Ms. MacGibbon?
Thank you. When we first appeared here 3 years ago, it was more or less to talk about our vision for what we felt we could realize in terms of value and benefits to Nova Scotians. Here we are 3 years later, and we do now have the ability to demonstrate with data that the expected or intended outcomes and objectives are being met. Folks like Dr. Bailey, Dr. Darling, and members of their team can speak to the elements that have been more generically realized in other centers, but also the pieces that are, feedback components with patients, the experience they have in hospital, the reduced use of resources, i.e. bed use, emergency department visits, and all of the things that Dr. Darling referenced. We have a very rigorous process for perioperative service in general as it relates to Nova Scotia Health and how we look in a very data-driven way at what we do, how we do it, and where we have areas that we want to look at potential improvements. Robotic surgery is a dimension of that work. So we would come together, and we do come together since the formation of Nova Scotia Health, to focus on the KPIs that are important to surgical services. A dimension of that work now very clearly is related to robotic surgery, and then also looking at the opportunities for that to enhance services outside of Central Zone.
MLA Druin?
Thank you for that. And is there a place that Nova Scotians can go to see specifically those anticipated KPIs associated with the adoption of robotics and to be able to sort of evaluate those on an ongoing basis? Are those being published online or elsewhere?
Ms. MacGibbon?
That's our intent. We are just on the cusp of having information that we do want to release to the public. We are just due to time in acquiring enough to be statistically significant from a data analytics perspective to have information that we feel is meaningful and exactly what our public would want to see as it relates to the value of robotic surgery as an option. So that's very soon to be part of information we're sharing.
Thank you. MLA Drone with 11 minutes and 20 seconds. Oh, sorry.
Do you mind?
No.
Dr. Bailey?
I think it's important to recognize that, the first robotics program in Canada came in 2007. We started a Da Vinci robotics program in 2019. We were the 34th Da Vinci in Canada, and now there are 65. And in the US, there are 4,000, and the rest of the world, there are 7,500. And that's just Da Vinci, and we talked about the orthopedics so this is not new, innovative techniques of surgery that we're talking about. It's new for our region, but all of this data has been proven. The benefit to patients, hospitals, return to work, economy, all of those things, this is not something that we need to study because this is standard of care. We can never go back. The question is, can we go forward as quickly as everybody else is? And I think that's hopefully what we're going to try to work out today is what is the investment going to be required in our province to keep up with the rest of the world? So all of those improvements that perhaps the Auditor General is going to look at and whatnot, yes, it's important, but that's kind of behind us. It's a proven benefit for many of the reasons that we've stated.
Okay, thank you. MLA Drone with 10 minutes remaining.
Thank you. Thank you, and I appreciate that. I wouldn't at all want to leave the impression that that's what my line of questioning is about. I think the benefits are well established for sure. My questions around KPI are less about establishing that these benefits are important and more about establishing whether our system is realizing the benefits. So we know that that robotics can improve outcomes and they can improve duration of stay and a variety of metrics. But whether the system is marshaled in a way that in Nova Scotia patients realize those benefits is a really important question as we do continue to see wait times that are excessive in many areas. So this is by no means a question of whether the robotics and those operating them are doing well. Is the rest of the system marshaled around that in such a way that we really feel the benefits? And that's sort of my focus around the KPIs. So it sounds like there hasn't yet been an established outline of what the anticipated KPIs would be, but we may be close to that. So that's excellent. But I'm curious if we could learn more about how we will establish those KPIs so that we can be confident that the investment that we're making and then the work that you and all of your teams are doing are being felt by Nova Scotians.
To use Dr. Darling?
If I may, and I may not have a clear understanding of all the KPIs, but the big one that stands out for me is more faster, and we have as I mentioned previously, the government provided funding for us to open up 3 new operating rooms. We opened at Dartmouth, one at the HI. Along with that, we need personnel to work in those operating rooms, and that's anesthesiologists, surgeons, nurses. We need the support staff, the medical device reprocessing people. And so, just like I said about the orthopedic assessment clinic, having enough surgeons to see patients to assess people is key. And so we've been able to recruit actually 26 surgeons in the last 2 or 3 years. But in terms of your KPIs of more faster, I mean, we are reporting that all the time, at least internally, on our volumes, how many operations we do. More than the number of operations is the operating room hours, because you could do one neurosurgical case, it'll take all day. So we've been looking at our operating hours, and those have increased steadily since the end of the pandemic. We have, we're looking at both daytime hours and nighttime hours. And so to me, that's a real number, and the same with the wait time. So we know that our, at least at QE2, that the wait times, our waiting list is coming down. And we've also taken significant steps to address those long waiters. And so that number is coming down as well. So I don't know if those numbers are available to you or not.
Thank you. MLA Druin.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that. I recognize your mission as leaders and your team's mission as practitioners is to execute on the resources that you're provided with to offer the best outcome to patients. My question is really around the goal setting and the KPIs, and that may be a question really for ministerial decision makers, right? I mean, more faster is not a KPI, but that is not on you. So I'll just move on from that. I do appreciate it. So that does lead me though to another question, and that's around the sort of the rest of the system and the support of the robotics and the other specialists, because it's, you don't have an illness or an injury and then immediately find yourself being treated for it. There is a process by which you have to get there through a practitioner, if you're lucky enough to have one, or otherwise, and often through referrals from specialists. So if we look as an example at arthritis, which is a leading cause of joint replacement in Nova Scotia, and it's a significant financial burden of over $1 billion in the provincial healthcare system, to say nothing about the dramatic impact that it has on the patients' lives and their experience of well-being. I've heard regularly from advocates and from patients that there is an exceptionally long wait list to see a rheumatologist in Nova Scotia, but many people are unable to get to a surgeon until they get through that step. And that's not unique to rheumatology. The specialist shortage goes beyond that. So I'm wondering if we could hear about what the province and NSH is doing to actively recruit specialists, such as rheumatologists. And I'd like to know if that lack of specialists is preventing surgical-related resources like those robots from operating at full capacity.
Ms. MacGibbon?
So that's a pretty big question as it relates to subspecialties, and we know that subspecialties like you mentioned, rheumatology, neurology, a number of those subs within medicine are challenged with respect to the demands on their service, and quite frankly, to have enough resource, often in the form of physician specialists, to see and support the needs of our communities. I will say that from an NSH perspective, there has been enormous gains as it relates to very innovative ways of working differently and finding efficiency with the use of physician extenders in really progressive, proactive ways to create what can be very comfortably a solution for a specialist to see patients and not solely rely on only the physician to triage and to help the patient make their way through the trajectory of care. And so we have a number of areas where that has been an enormous improvement. Neurology is a good example. Are there still gaps in terms of vacancies? And a lot of neurology programs across Canada vying for the small number of neurologists looking to, that's the reality. But I do think we are trying lots of really different ways of enabling access to care that doesn't solely rely on a traditional model, because we know that traditional model is a tough one to have as a solid solution when we know the realities are what they are across the country.
MLA Druin with 2.5 minutes remaining.
Okay, I want to thank you very much for that. I won't ask this as a question right now, but I would like to know more about what those alternate pathways are, if we could get details of those. Yeah. Great. Okay. I do want to ask, and very briefly, and my colleague may pick up on this. We know that many of the surgeries are happening in the central region. For example, the number of hip and knee replacements more were completed in the central zone than any other area of the province. We also know that wait times for knee and hip replacements in the Valley, South Shore, Southwest, and across the province continue to be lengthy. I am wondering if you can share whether NSH has any intention of developing capacity for robotic-assisted surgeries outside the HRM, especially considering the length of wait times that exist there.
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, as part of the Center of Excellence vision, and our mandate would be to oversee and come up with a strategy to, very carefully assess the needs of all 4 zones in the province, but recognizing the resources required, the personnel required, and the support required to put those in. I think one of the misconceptions is that if you put a robot in a hospital, the people there can just start using it. It's not the case. It might be the case for some of the robots, perhaps, and I can't speak on the orthopedics robot, but perhaps orthopedic surgeons can learn that easier than perhaps the Da Vinci, which is a much more complicated robot. For instance, if in the future, and if this has happened across the country, again, we're a little bit late here, but across the country there are regional hospitals who are adopting robotics, whereas it was just the tertiary care hospitals initially. But they're recruiting people who are trained in that specialty ahead of time. They're identifying people 3 to 5 years out and saying, if we get a robot here, we've got to hire 2 or 3 people that know how to use it. So yes, the Center of Excellence, not as a brick and mortar place. It's going to be a function of looking at our province, 1 million people. We're a perfect size geographic area to be able to distribute and plan and strategize. How do we prepare for the fact that robotics will be in all 4 zones eventually? It won't be next month, but it's going to be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
20 minutes has expired. We'll move on to the Progressive Conservative Caucus, and we'll start with MLA Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here today. I wasn't here 3 years ago when you were here, but it's really exciting to know that we've gone from theory to realizing some of those benefits about robotic surgery. And when you hear things about like reduced wait times, hospital stays, reduced readmissions, reduced need for blood transfusions, increased OR availability, increased recruitment of physicians, like to hear that we've recently recruited up to 26 surgeons, like that's significant work that's been done over the past 3 years. And other opportunities, like to be I'm assuming a national, but even a world leader when it comes to training in robotics. Like those are exciting things that Nova Scotians should be proud of, and all of you. And I hope that's what comes out of today, is that we're able to share some of that. My colleague even said that it's very clear that the benefits of robotic surgery, that there's benefits from robotic surgery and what they offer. So maybe to start, we can just share a little bit of the history of how we got here. Can you walk the committee through how the capacity for surgical robots in the QE2 has grown since 2019 and what's made that growth possible?
Dr. Bailey?
So in 2018, in a pretty short order, we got together a committee of people, including from Nova Scotia Health, physician leaders, administrative leaders, leaders in the QE2 Foundation, and the public. And the public was a huge driving force of this. And we were able to secure funding and get support from Nova Scotia Health and DHW to start robotics. And then from there, within a couple, 2 or 3 years, we were adding the orthopedics Mako robots and the neurosurgery robots, and it just started going up from there. And we like others have said here today, we have some very talented physicians in this province who are, very much forward-thinking innovators. And we had the innovation research hub that Nova Scotia Health has supported in the last 5 or 6 years. And all of those things have led to a momentum of saying, everything that we can offer in Halifax can be offered anywhere else in the world. We don't really think of ourselves as any different here. So our goal really was to work with those 3 or 4 groups of people and just continue to move forward. The problem is, though, and this is kind of how things evolve, is once you start offering something very innovative with the benefits that we've all recognized today, there becomes a centralization of care. And that has happened everywhere that robots have started. And that means that a lot of things start funneling into the central zone because we're offering robotics. So that somebody asked how many surgery we were doing. Before we had a robot, we were doing about 150 prostatectomies for prostate cancer per year. And now we're doing between 250 and 270 per year. And that's because robotics and all the benefits that it owes, more people come in. That drives our wait lists up as well in Halifax, so we need more resources. So now we have a second robot, which Dr. Darling was instrumental in pushing for, because the other surgical departments needed one. Now we need a third robot, and we'll probably have another robot, you know, in the other zones in the next 5 to 10 years. So the evolution is that if you build it, they will come. It's expanded as though we predicted, and I think that it's almost like a tsunami of progression in the type of healthcare that we can provide Nova Scotians, and in a very short time, the vendors of the products that we use, the units that we use, have come out and said, you guys are doing high volume, very efficient work. So we keep track of efficiency as well, and we're leading the country in Da Vinci in efficiency in the OR. The number of cases that our Da Vinci robot did last year was the #1 Da Vinci robot in the country in terms of volume. It's a workhorse. It runs from 7:30 to 5 every day, and sometimes later.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
MLA Hilton?
Thank you for that. And you just mentioned about the partners that have played a role in making this happen. What role has the hospital foundations and donors played in funding this program, and how does the partnership model work alongside government investment?
Ms. MacGibbon?
I think that's an important point to focus on, because we know that centers across Canada that had originally, as Dr. Bailey said, in 2007 and 8 moved toward having robotics acquired for use. It was almost solely because they had a foundation who had donors generous to provide the finances needed to purchase. We are in the same situation here in Nova Scotia, where we've had incredible generosity from our donors, and the philanthropic combination of government funding and then donor foundation funding has been the perfect complement to the solutions needed with respect to the financials to enable us to move in the direction that we have. And I think it goes without saying that if you look across Canada, the centers that have moved in the direction we have before us have done so in a similar way. Foundations have been instrumental. And I think what we want to ensure, as Dr. Bailey said, is that we use our Center of Excellence and leverage all that we have within Central Zone now to help the rest of the province move in that same direction at a pace that makes sense and realizes the benefit across all 4 zones and not only centralized in the space that we're in right now. I think it's reflective of where we are in our evolution since 2018, but we're already seeing, as I mentioned earlier, significant interest from other zones, their surgeons, their surgery programs, to acquire robotic technology as well, both for orthopedics, Da Vinci, as well for broad-based specialties like urology and gynae and general surgical services. So we know it's moving, and we know that we will get there by way of not only foundations, but with the operational government funding that we have in place as well to do that.
Thank you. MLA Hilton?
Thank you for that. And maybe a question for you, Dr. Davies. The IWK Health and the QE2 partnered on Canada's first robotic-assisted pediatric scoliosis surgery. What did that collaboration look like?
Dr. Davies?
Yeah, we have a very active spine surgery program at the IWK for scoliosis, and those children, most of them generally need surgery as an adolescent, and so we can safely provide care for most adolescents at the QE2, but the scoliosis part of the surgery is more of a pediatric expertise, so the spine surgeons that do that work primarily at the IWK. So they were able to go to the QE2 and take some of our patients who were young teens and safely do them there using the infrastructure that's already in place at the QE2. So they used that robot there to do that.
MLA Hilton?
Thank you for that. And just my last question for this round. We've talked a little bit about wait times, and I just wanted to share a couple things. At the end of 2025, this province was at a 10-year low when it comes to surgical wait times. And that takes into account a population increase, a significant one over that period of time. I think that really speaks to the work that you guys are doing, and it's really exciting to see that, you know, we talk about wait lists, but really the important thing to take away from today is that they're slowly decreasing. And I'd like to hear a little bit more from you guys in time of where you see that, where you see us headed wait time-wise. Another stat was the surgical long waiters, that list has decreased, and that's for people waiting 365 days, decreased in 2025 by more than 1,600 patients. So, like, we are making progress, and I do believe we'll get there. Last week it was reported that wait times for hip and knee replacements in Nova Scotia are now the shortest on record. And congratulations to you for that. In 2019, under the previous Liberal government, Nova Scotia had some of the longest wait times in the country. Our government has done a lot of work and made a lot of important investments to reverse that trend. Would you be able to tell this committee about some of the changes that you've seen in healthcare over the past 5 years that have contributed to this positive progress?
Dr. Davies, or sorry, Dr. Darling?
I think, you know, the government has invested heavily in healthcare, and we've been, as I mentioned previously, opened three new operating rooms, which isn't just the physical rooms, it's the nurses, anesthesia, surgeons. They've been instrumental in funding new positions for surgeons. So I've been able, not all those surgeons are new, they're like net new. So I think that they've invested heavily and that's paying off. And if we look at the orthopedic one in particular, they invested heavily in that group, in the arthroplasty group, and that's how we got to be #1 in the country. So definitely paid off there. With the Nova Scotia Health and the Data and Analytics group, developed a tool to help us with organizing our wait lists, our surgical wait lists, so that, you know, they're ranked in terms of priority, and also what we have benchmarks for the time. You know, this if they're a level 2, they need to be done within 2 weeks. If they're, you know, if they're what we call Lucas Black, those are the long waiters, and they're long waiters because they're not. You know, they're not immediate priority patients. You know, if you have a cancer, you're not in Lucas Black. But what was happening was those people were waiting a long time because they kept getting pushed down the list. So the Nova Scotia Health brought in the sort of a centralized wait list management program. So the booking people look at the list and look at who's booked and how long they've been waiting, and they will send a list to the surgeon's office and say, you've got these patients waiting, and amongst those are those long waiters. And so they basically focused a light on them and brought them to attention so they don't get forgotten. So I think that those couple of things have really paid off in terms of reducing the wait list.
Thank you very much. MLA Father Ray.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. I think it's important for us not to lose many of the insight. Just listening closely to the conversations, the discussions I'm hearing today, I'm hearing 4,000 patients have already benefited from robotic-assisted surgery. I'm hearing that we are seeing reduced stay in hospitals. I'm hearing that readmission states are falling. You know, I'm also hearing that there are thousands of hours that's been returned to the healthcare system. I think those are some of the things I could say that I'm hearing from the conversation that we're having so far. We know that the surgical wait list is at the lowest, like my colleague has said, in 10 years, more than a decade, despite the significant population growth. So Nova Scotia is increasing in terms of the numbers, but yet the surgical wait time is reducing. So I think that's something we need to underscore. And I love Dr. Bailey's conversation around the question whether technology is coming is not the issue, because we see it used rapidly and in the United States. Is how we prepare Nova Scotians, you know, for that. So I wanted you to speak about, because you talked about the concept of the Center of Excellence, that is not just like brick and mortar, it's not like a physical location in itself. So can you help us describe, the Center of Excellence in terms of the robotic surgery, how the structure of it, perhaps more importantly, what are the priorities you want to accomplish over the next few years? Because you talked about it's not every zone that will get it tomorrow, but you talked about maybe a timeline about 5-10 years. I'm just wondering if you can speak about the structure of this Center of Excellence so that, not just people here in this place, but people who are watching online can have a better understanding of what that structure looks like, and also around the priorities and the things that you're set to accomplish, because I think we're in the right direction as a province.
Dr. Bailey? Dr. Darling?
So the Center of Excellence, I mean, it kind of started with, an idea that robotics was here to stay and was going to be increasing. And, Dr. Bailey pointed out that a province of 1 million people is a perfect size to kind of keep a, lens on everything. And so we got together, surgeons and administrators and so on. And we came up with sort of 5 goals for the Center of Excellence. And these are, of course, patient benefit and system benefit, education and training, which I've already mentioned, data, so that we can look at our efficiencies, and research. So we'll get the data and then we'll use that to answer questions. But the other part of it is what's called clinical application and new technology. So we've had, as Ms. MacGibbon mentioned, we've had inquiries from other centers in the province about getting a Da Vinci, for example. And, it's a big ticket item. And it's not like you can just put it down and start using it like Dr. Bailey said. So the whole idea of this particular work group, the clinical application and new technology, is to evaluate the need for a Da Vinci, for example, in Sydney or in Truro, and do they have the population to support it? Do they have the surgeons to support it? What are they going to use it for? What's the training stream for those surgeons? So that we can do it in an intelligent manner rather than just, the Hospital Foundation in Sydney decide they're going to buy a Da Vinci robot. Not that we want to be a barrier. We just want to make sure that it's operationalized in a sensible manner, safe manner, that kind of thing. So I think that's a very important work stream at the Center of Excellence, is not to be a barrier, and we're working with innovation on that to make sure that these centers that want a robot are supported in terms of training and data, so that they can implement it intelligently and safely. The other part is the new technology, and Da Vinci is kind of the only game in town so far in terms of the manipulative robot. But for the image-guided or the navigational robots, there are many different vendors. And so, for example, for the orthopedic robot, the one that we have at the QE2 and at Dartmouth is a Mako robot. There are other vendors. So innovation is helping us evaluate those other vendors, or their robot, to see how does it compare with what we've got already, does it offer advantages, that sort of thing. And so, as opposed to, a vendor just speaking to a surgeon, the surgeon going to their foundation and say, hey, buy me this, we're evaluating it.
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, I'll just add one comment. I think that because there are so many moving parts and complexity in robotics in general, it's in the best interest of the institutions, the province, and particularly the patients, that there's an oversight, a governing body to really, oversee the expansion of robotics. It's very different than a new piece of equipment that any hospital or operating room can get and figure out how to use it. This is more of a program, and because there are so many different medical conditions and body parts and diseases that are being used, and that it will expand. One of the comments earlier was that in Canada, the focus is on oncology because robotics is a limited resource, and we prioritize cancer for the use of it. But in other countries, in particular in the US, it has expanded to, the person who went and got their surgery for endometriosis, or we have one of our residents who just graduated this year. He's in Colorado learning how to do very advanced reconstructive surgery, which is now coming to Ontario. It's coming to British Columbia. So, a Center of Excellence is really looking forward with governance and oversight to ensure that we get this right. It's expensive, and it has to be done in a formal, organized format. And I think that's why we recognize the Center of Excellence as the way to do that.
MLA Father Wraith, 1.5 minutes remaining.
Well, I think it's clear from what I'm hearing that it's obvious that it's not about putting robots in every hospital, right? Because somebody might be asking, so why do we get the money and just put robots in the hospital? We fix all the problems, right? Because I'm hearing clearly that you're talking about is you need to have trained people, right? You have to have trained surgeons who are able to use it, trained teams. We need to have the infrastructure in place, and also to have what you call, the expertise, the experiences, because you talked earlier on regarding the number of normal procedures that need to take place in order for you to get better using the robot. So that offers like a template, or should I say an opportunity to leverage knowledge and transfer it somewhere else. I was going to ask you a question, but I'm not sure 1 minute would be enough for me to ask the question. So I just wanted to just say that I'd rather wait for the next round because I won't be able to answer it effectively. But I just wanted to say that it's important what you're doing. I think that you've echoed it loud and clear. Just listening to you, Dr. Bailey, how behind we are as a province in some of this new technology. And there are some people who rather allow us to form a committee to probably study the usefulness or the productivity of robots. But you've clearly said today that study is already, there are a lot of studies I heard about that, and I'm hoping that people are hearing that and recognizing that they need to be on board and not try to be criticized for the sake of criticizing, and just to see how we can support and ensure that we're able to do this to the benefit of the patient, which ultimately are the most important. I guess last time up.
Thank you, MLA Father Wraith. So we'll now move on to our second round of questioning. We have 13 minutes per caucus, and we'll once again start with the NDP, and this time be MLA Wilson.
Thanks. My questions may seem rapid fire. It's only because I only have 13 minutes and I like to talk, so bear with me. A couple questions about capacity building. So are your current residents, particularly in your surgical adult residency programs, is training in robotics a core competencies with the Royal College, or is it more requiring a fellowship? Really, the reason I'm asking is, are we training in-house residents that can actually go out and have the skill set to function somewhere like Kentville, or does it require extra training?
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, so it currently it still requires fellowship training, and it's because of, subspecialty training is not just the technical aspect, it's the decision-making around the disease. So understanding how best to treat prostate cancer, bladder cancer, esophageal cancer, these things. So what we're finding, though, and what we're hearing from the fellowships that our residents are going to is that they're coming so well prepared. They're getting so much experience in our center that when they go to do a fellowship, it's that much better for them. So currently, it's not a core competency in the Royal College. Will it become, eventually probably will, because to be honest, the residents aren't seeing open surgery anymore. So our residents wouldn't even know what an open prostatectomy looked like. So it still is a fellowship thing. I don't know about...
Yeah,
Dr. Darling?
Sorry, it's not a core competency in general surgery either.
Thank you. MLA Wilson?
You also mentioned that it's used mostly for gynecology. When I looked at our wait time for gynecology, which was horrific, most of the procedures were like vag hysterectomies and non-gynecological, so vag hysterectomy being a slow, complicated procedure. You mentioned in the U.S. that it's used outside of gynae. Do you see a point, hopefully in the near future, where robotics could assist and decrease those wait times in the stuff that are non-gynecological that is adding to the big wait time, I think particularly in the Valley?
Dr. Bailey?
I think you have to ask how quickly a robotic hysterectomy is done versus a vaginal hysterectomy. a robotic hysterectomy, I believe, is longer operating room time. So there are procedures, as Dr. Darling said, that are still done laparoscopically or transvaginally that are safe, low morbidity, quick recovery. Those, I think, will continue to be done quicker than robotic surgeries. The setup, the actual robotic surgery, once you get started, is faster than the open surgery, but the setup for the room, the takedown of the room, and all those technical aspects, it takes a 2-hour case and makes it 3 sometimes. Now, we've gotten much shorter because we've gotten faster at everything. So we're you know, in many sense, when a robot comes into an institution, there's a learning curve for the entire team, the nurses, the techs in there and everything. And eventually your efficiency takes over and you're probably doing as much or more than you were open.
MLA Wilson?
So I recently toured Dartmouth General and saw the benefits of the robotic arms for orthopedics, and while our wait times have decreased from consult to surgery, we still have horrific wait times for consult to see the surgeon. You know, in Kentville, 362 days is the mean, more than twice the wait time for Dartmouth and Halifax. So, well, we should be proud of those. These other measurements are not something we should be proud of. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is there a point in time where, as a wait time, will robotics actually help at some point, and if when, decrease the time from referral to consult? The consult to surgery time is shortened, but what I hear all about was one of my biggest frustrations as a family doctor is, when's my surgery? Don't know. Interesting enough, Nella's an MLA. I get phone calls from rural Nova Scotia, my colleagues writing saying, I've been waiting a year, 2 years, you're a family doctor, what's going on? So really, while we celebrate that, I think what we're missing, the Nova Scotian experience, is, will robotics at some point in time, will there be a tipping point, and maybe there won't, and that's okay, to decrease that 1 to 2 year wait time to see a surgeon? $1 million question.
Dr. Darling?
I don't think the robotics is going to change that, to be blunt. I think what changes that are the other things that we've started, which is the orthopedic assessment clinic, and I think that's a good thing to roll out across the province, not just to have it at QE2, because that gets the patients in and gets them assessed and gets some treatment for them while they're waiting for surgery, if they need surgery. And it takes those other people off the list who don't need surgery. So there's that. There's the OCEAN referral system, which is province-wide. I will say this about the OCEAN system. It has actually shone a light on the patients waiting who just don't get seen, because the OCEAN system has now provided surgeons with the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to accept that patient because my wait list is too long. And so we're actually starting to really get a handle on the data of how many patients really are waiting. We had no idea before. So that's not a solution, but at least we have data to support that. So I don't think robotics is going to make a difference to that wait time to consult. These other efficiencies will.
Ms. MacGibbon?
To add to Dr. Darling's comment about the strategies with respect to earlier assessment and triaging, because we have seen that with joint replacement and potential for arthroplasty not actually to be needed, and that has been spread throughout Nova Scotia and other zones as well. So we're seeing the benefits, and as well, the spinal program here in Halifax has moved in that same direction, where patients are assessed in the way that, you know, as proactively as possible to understand, do they actually need spine surgery or not? And teeing that up in a team-based way so that it's not solely reliant on the spine surgeon, and do that in an interdisciplinary team-based fashion so that we can influence in a positive way wait times. And that's another good example of, I think, where we have opportunity to make those kinds of advancements in other specialty areas across the province. And I will say Dr. Darling is spot on with respect to the challenge with not knowing. We now have an ability within Nova Scotia to understand what those waits really look like for patients. We've had the anecdotal evidence through mostly concerns being expressed through primary care providers. And that's the similar experience across the country where jurisdictions just don't have a good handle on that first segment or weight one. Now we understand what weight one looks like across the province, and then we have the ability to influence it and find improvements and strategize, as Dr. Bailey said, where we can funnel patients and tee them up in ways that reduce their ultimate wait time.
Thank you. MLA Wilson with 5.5 minutes remaining.
Excellent. So thank you, Dr. Darling, for actually acknowledging the robots are not going to decrease that wait time. We've not heard that any time before today. We've only heard celebrations, which I honor the celebrations, but to the Nova Scotians waiting, they keep thinking, okay, what's the robot going to do to my wait time? So it's very refreshing to hear some accurate opinions. So thank you. I guess the question I want to ask is, Dr. Bailey, you had mentioned, I want to quote you, is something about we want to move forward, we need to get going, and you mentioned that robots are standard of care. So to the surgeons in the room, what do you need to get going that you don't have right now?
Dr. Bailey?
We need an expansion of robotic equipment. So currently we have 8 robots. We need more. I won't get into the details. We need more OR time, more surgeons to decrease the wait one times. There's a lot more we need. Right now, though, I think we need a signal from government. And then I will, your question earlier, you know, I have recognized, I've been in this role as department head into my 9th year now, and I have noticed a significant investment in healthcare in the last 5 years. And I think that, you know, we need the government to recognize that in order to bring wait times down, both to be seen and to have surgery, we need more. As a physician, you know, you either work harder, you see more patients per day, or you add more doctors, or you become innovative, like Eileen was saying about having these clinics where non-physicians perhaps can screen patients. That's the only way we can bring wait times down. So I'm not really answering your question. I am? I am. Okay. Okay. That's all then.
Dr. Darling, what do you need?
MLA Wilson? Dr. Darling?
I would echo what Dr. Bailey just said. We need more surgeons, more ORs, and with more ORs, all the things that go with that, nurses and anesthesia and device reprocessing. In terms of the robotics piece for my department, we desperately need at least 1 more Da Vinci. We could probably use 2 more Da Vincis. Right now, we know that urology alone could use 1, and they graciously give up some to gyne-oncology. I think gyne-oncology could use 1 all by themselves. We would like to expand into cardiac surgery, and I don't know how many people saw that on the news. Mark Ruel from Ottawa Heart doing robotic coronary bypass surgery. We have a guy already here who could start that. So we'd like to expand into cardiac surgery. We have 2 more colorectal surgeons who are, you know, anxious to get going, but we just don't have enough time to give them, because if we dilute the experience of the people already doing it, their skills are going to drop down, and then their efficiency is also going to get worse. So we have to kind of give them enough time on the robot to maintain their skills and efficiency. So meanwhile, we've got other surgeons who could use a robot, but we don't have the robot.
MLA Wilson?
Yeah.
Dr. Davies?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the work that's going to.
Dr. Davies?
A lot is going to be the work that comes out of the Center of Excellence, and I think the IWK will benefit significantly from that. The whole process of robotics needs oversight. It needs support. We're every day looking at different ways that we can tackle the wait list, whether it's wait 1, wait 2, trying to innovate, trying to make sure everyone's working to their full capacity, which I guarantee you all of them are. So when we come and say, look, we really need this to tackle the wait list, we're being as responsible as humanly possible, I think, to make sure that we do that wisely. So I think trusting what we're saying when we say, look, yeah, we really need to do this. This is important for medicine and healthcare in Nova Scotia. And we're keeping an eye on the wait list, and we're trying to make sure that we're also advancing in the technology at the same time.
Thank you. MLA Wilson with 50 seconds remaining.
Hopefully my colleagues in the government were listening to your recommendations. My last comment is thank you for trying. And I also worry that those who keep working harder burn out, and we have to admit that. My other thing, maybe we'll follow up with another question, is can we decentralize so the person in Sydney, Shetty Camp, doesn't have to wait twice as long as someone in Halifax?
For Dr. Davies with 20 seconds remaining.
I think the centralization needs to happen currently because where the big benefits to robotic surgery are in the complex cases which need to get done in a tertiary care center. So the complex patient from Shetty Camp is being done in Halifax anyway, so they're getting that care. I think the basic, more standard care is happening in a decentralized fashion, and that's how it has to be for now, with time as we expand.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to Liberal Caucus and MLA Mumbercat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the opportunity to ask a few questions. I only have 10 minutes. I will say that as the longest kind of serving MLA that's on the committee now, 11 years in, I remember when the robotics program was launched in 2019. And it was because of the work of some amazing donors, families across the province, and of course the work of all of you and your team. It's something that we talked about way back when, how important it was in trying to expand the options for new technology to support Nova Scotians every day. So here we are in committee having a conversation in 2026, and now I get to hear it again and hear the update, so I really appreciate it. One of the things, with the limited amount of time I have, there's been a lot of questions around data and wait times and whatnot. The biggest thing for me is what Dr. Bailey said about what's next. And one of the themes that came out of this, and Ms. MacGibbon, you mentioned this too, is the donor versus capital expense. And that's really a big part of this, is ultimately to expand robotics. You know, donors are amazing. We see donors all over the island. We have a great foundation in Cape Breton. But they also are being asked a lot. So my question's for you, Mr. Chair, and whoever wants to take it. Will you look to the government, and has an ask been given to the government to look at this as more of a capital expense and something that they should be investing in more than depending on donors?
Ms. MacGibbon?
I think the evolution of robotic-assisted surgery as an acquisition and the significant capital investment coming by way of donor generosity obviously has been the trend across the entire country. I think, as Dr. Bailey said, as we move toward what is really considered to be a standard of care, we are already seeing, and we've seen demonstrated through government support, significant support, that we are embedding the support required, the resources required within our operational budgets to support robotic surgery. So as we look at your example of Cape Breton and the opportunity, I think what we want to be very smart about is delineating or differentiating what our foundation should be considering, and not asking them to be looking to campaign for something that should reside within what we would say is our operational budgets. And I think we've been very smart about that. And I think our foundations have appreciated that. That said, I do think that as we move forward, Dr. Bailey mentioned the number of cases that have made their way to Halifax. I do not believe that the patient in Shetty Camp in any way, if they have complex needs that are benefited by way of a Da Vinci approach, are in any way is disadvantaged. I think they are making their way. We have the data to support they're making their way to Halifax. But should they have an opportunity for that same service in Sydney? Perhaps. And that's where the Centre of Excellence will play a pivotal role in ensuring that we create a blueprint that's sensible. And I would hope, we all hope, We have not seen a significant reduction in pricing related to robotics yet in our system. I think because the bigger players in that sphere have been lone wolves with respect to having the market pretty much sewn up for them. That's just the way it's been. I do hope that we have more competition, because that would hopefully lead to, you know, reduced expenses from a capital point of view, and that will make it easier for us to move in the direction Dr. Bailey mentioned earlier, which is not just academic centers, not just tertiary sites, but the ability to have robotics programs in regional hospitals and not solely reliant on foundations to support it. Yeah.
MLA Mummercat?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I was involved with hospice at home, and you know, we look at the conversation around, you know, PET scan technology, having it in 2 locations, just giving Nova Scotians the ability in other parts of the province to if they can't access it in Halifax, which I know lots of Cape Bretoners are coming to Halifax to receive support. It would be nice to eventually get to a point where there's a second location where you can actually have this technology. I always, you know, I represent Sydney, where, you know, CBRM's a population of 100,000+ people. A lot of folks are traveling, and it's also a place where people could go from the eastern side of the province to actually receive that care too as well. So hopefully down the road, and it's something that, you know, regardless of who's in the government of the day, donors play a huge part in this, but we also know that donors are being asked to fund a lot, and we've been very fortunate over the years to have some really amazing people step up across the province to fund some of the stuff that some of the most important pieces of equipment that Nova Scotians use every day. One thing I will say as we move forward too as well, the government of the day guaranteed 24/7 operating rooms. So that has been something that has been on the docket now by the government for years. What would that do if the government kept their commitment of 24/7 operating capacity?
Ms. MacGibbon?
I think, is that something that we'd like to achieve? I think all of us have, if you look at it from an industry agnostic point of view, we would want to run our services as much as we possibly can. The challenge we have in healthcare, like many other industries, is the balance from a human resource perspective. The numbers of folks that we have today are often challenged by the number of vacancies within specialties for physicians. We see it in almost every clinical discipline now: lab, diagnostic imaging, nursing. We know that there are challenges, and that's not unique to Nova Scotia. So our ability to optimize the use of operating rooms in outside of more traditional hours is definitely challenged by our ability to staff them in a way that creates a balance that will retain our folks. We don't want to create a system of expectation that actually puts us in a worse state as it relates to folks leaving because they don't like the conditions of employment. I will say, though, when I think about what we've achieved at Dartmouth General, we know that one of the pinch points as it relates to access to the operating room is bed access. And the Dartmouth General was leading the country, 8 years ago, when they started doing joint replacement surgery and patients going home the same day safely with great outcomes, because that took away the dependency on admission to a bed, which was often the reason they couldn't, optimize the operating room time. So for us, I think, and we've seen that expand across Nova Scotia, not just at the Dartmouth General now. So I think what we're trying to do is find efficiencies in every way that we can and use OR time as best we can. And Dr. Bailey referenced as well the extended days we have with the robot. They're certainly not being turned off at 3:30, and we are running them as much as we can from a staffing balance point of view.
MLA Mummercat with 6 minutes remaining.
6 minutes, thank you. Well, feels like I have it like an hour. Well, it's going good. I guess one question is Cape Bretonner, and we see lots of folks travel to Halifax. I have a family member coming up. Maybe we'll be meeting with the IWK around an injury. Can you break down just kind of the wait time compared, and I'm not trying to, we want everybody to get the same access to care. I live the furthest away, so Yarmouth maybe too, but the point is that we hear it at home that people come to Halifax and they have to travel to Halifax. Is there a big gap in the wait time between somebody receiving the care that may live closer to Halifax than outside?
Dr. Bailey?
There really should be no difference in any individual in the province in the wait time to be seen in Halifax, because we triage based on priority of or risk of disease. So I know that I can only speak for my group, but we wouldn't base any kind of triaging on where someone lives, ever. Yeah.
MLA Mumbercat?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's just it's always a question because we're always trying to support families who are trying to make it to the capital for a number of reasons. Financial is an issue. We have a lot of seniors that try to come, and it's a bit of a navigation for them to do that. And again, I want to go, and Dr. Bale, I'll ask you this question. In an ideal situation, like for me, we're kind of seeing this evolve over the last since 2019. Staff deserve all the credit. You know what I mean? Like, governments come and go, and governments make investments, and we want to see investment in healthcare regardless of what side of the floor you serve on as an elected representative, because we all want the best for the people that we represent. And the team at the IWK and beyond, Dal, and I know some people at home have been involved too as well. There's some great medical professionals at home who've been involved in this conversation, deserve a lot of credit for the work they do every day to support families across the province. But again, I always go back to the next step. Like, what is for you? What is the next step? You mentioned government investment, continued government investment, and I'll talk specifically about robotics. But I always try to go into these committees with kind of one key takeaway, that we can all, when we go back into the legislature, we can reference this and we can have the conversation. So I'd like to hear from all of you if you want to partake in the answer. Like, what is the next step? Like, ultimately, you're at this point. We're seeing great success. You're seeing support. You're seeing wait lists reduced. You're seeing numbers for the betterment of people who are getting the service. What's the next step? What's the next best move?
Dr. Bailey?
I think, to put it quite simply, I would like to see the government commit to significant long-term investment in supporting, healthcare in general, but in particular today we're talking about robotics, and not, I think, and some of the comments that Eileen made about the foundations have delivered, and the public through the foundations have delivered these new products to us, whether it's a PET scanner, an MRI, or a robot. But eventually it comes time where the province, I think, needs to commit that they will continue to operationalize those services. That's the next step for me. So it's a collaborative approach between government, Nova Scotia Health, Foundation, physicians, for me.
Anybody else like to? Dr. Darling?
I would echo what Dr. Bailey has already said. The other component I think is important is investing in physician extenders. They recently opened the Masters of Physician Assistant program at Dalhousie, and these individuals are really extremely well trained to be physician assistants. And so to take on some of those roles in assessing patients or supporting surgeons or whoever to kind of expand our capabilities beyond, the one surgeon. And I think that was a very good move. I think it needs to be supported and expanded.
Anyone else like to contribute to it? MLA Mumbercat with the 1 minute.
Okay, I won't have time for an answer, but I'll just end with thanking you. Thank all of you. Thank all of your staff and donors and people who are involved with this. As I said from the onset, this was one example where you had significant donors step up back in 2019 to really lead the charge on this. Dr. Bailey, you referenced it again too. We've seen amazing people step up, MRIs, hospice in Cape Breton, big conversations around PET scans, these pieces of equipment that we've continuously had the blessing of people who would come forward and say, as a family, we want to donate, as an individual, we want to donate. But I think it's going to be a big conversation moving forward around how whoever is in government, what is that long-term investment, that sustainable investment in the operational side of things. And I'll just end with also saying that as you build that center of excellence in your advisory, I'm sure you're talking about this, representation from across the province is key in that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Progressive Conservative Caucus, and we'll start with MLA Father Ray.
Thank you very much. I know you've also, Dr. Bailey has said this a couple of times, that it's not just about the technology. You need the people. So we've obviously been a government who's been willing to be innovative with different kinds of initiatives. So it's not just about the equipment itself, it's also ensuring that we have the right skill sets, the right trained individuals. So I needed to echo that because I kept hearing a particular phrase over and over again from my member opposite. I want to just quickly ask my question, which I was trying to ask earlier. And we've seen how robotics is supporting surgeries across all kinds of specialties right now, from orthopedics to urology to neurosurgery to spine and all of that. I'm just wondering what would determine the next expansion in terms of what other specialty you're looking at, and then also one of the things that's making rounds is on what community, what are you looking at to determine what specialty and what community would benefit from this? Because I think we have nowhere else to go but to expand. That's the way I feel. So I don't know if either Dr. Bailey would like to answer that, and any other person who might be interested in that. Thank you.
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, so there are certain services or subspecialties that should never leave Halifax because the volume of those conditions or those diseases should really remain in one center, and that would be thoracic surgery, vascular surgery, at least cardiac surgery, I mean. For pelvic surgery and orthopedic surgery, I can see that those, and when I say pelvic, I mean perhaps bowel surgery, prostate surgery, kidney surgery, anything in the abdominal cavity or joints, I can see that those could eventually expand to regional centers. Again, you've noted the importance of the appropriate clientele, or sorry, the appropriate personnel and support. It's not just the surgeon who does it. It's you need special equipment to sterilize the equipment, and you need the post-operative expertise, the nursing, the floors, and all that kind of stuff, the physiotherapies and all that. So I think that certain ones would always remain in Halifax because there's no role to put those in a tertiary or in a regional center, and then some of the intra-abdominal things and joints could go to other centers eventually. Now, the preparation for that is identifying how many surgeons you need and how many patients you have to keep the skills up of those surgeons. It's very difficult, as we know, and we know this from Sydney, and other places in Canada, it's very difficult to send one person as an expert in something and expect them to stay because they get overrun with and they get burned out and they have to leave. So I think the province has done a good job at looking at the zones and saying, well, we really only need 1 or 2 urologists here, but we're going to have to put 3 or 4 because that's the only way we're going to keep a urology service there. I think the same goes with Sydney, and I'm going to come back to Sydney because people in Cape Breton don't really want to come up to Halifax to have their treatment, and I don't blame them. And they've had tremendously gifted surgeons in Sydney. And as they replace those surgeons as they retire or move, I think there has to be a real focus on, let's not just hire a urologist, let's look for a urologist who's trained in robotics, and let's look for another one to join them. And he and she, you know, let's provide them with a really supportive environment that attracts them to come. We can attract people in Halifax because they're joining a group of 15 people, but it's different. So it's a different way of thinking when you're opening up robotics in a regional center. It requires more investment.
Thank you. Dr. Davies?
I think it's going to be really important for the Center of Excellence to guide that, because you're never going to give us a blank check for this. So there's always going to have to be someone making sure that there's a fair distribution of the limited resource. And part of the reason, and I thank everyone for allowing me to be part of this, is the kids sometimes get left behind. And so we need to be at the table, and it's important that someone's at the table representing all of the different specialties, because unfortunately we're not hearing too much about gynecological surgery today, but gynecological surgery is a huge part of the healthcare burden in Nova Scotia. So some central committee needs to be looking at that and saying, okay, what is next? What makes sense? What's feasible? What's efficient? What's going to have the most impact for the limited amount that we have? So I'm thankful that it exists, and the IWK will certainly be piggybacking on top.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll move on to MLA Robichaud.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. Admittedly, I was not very knowledgeable on this subject, so this meeting was very informative, and I feel like I can walk away from this meeting knowing where we are with this and what the next steps will be. So my first question, we touched on it a few times, but how are surgeons and trainees being recruited or retained because of access to this technology?
Dr. Darling?
I think that it varies by specialty. Like I would say Dr. Bailey would not be able to recruit a urologist without having access to the Da Vinci robot. We are not there yet in other surgical disciplines. Let me backtrack a little bit. Gynae-oncology is another one. They recently had a very difficult time recruiting, and their only way they can recruit, they were successful in recruiting, is because they had access to the robot. You know, gynecologic oncologists will not do surgery without the robot. They just has to have it. In other surgical disciplines, it's coming. So, for example, we just recruited a liver surgeon who spent a whole year doing robotic fellowship in liver and pancreas surgery. He would have gone somewhere else if we didn't have a robot. And we were able to retain a thoracic surgeon who basically was going to leave unless we got a robot. So it's coming, where we will not be able to recruit surgeons in the future if we don't have robotics. It's already true for residents in training, where they're looking to see that where they're going to go train has robotics, because they know that's the future. So it's already happening.
Thank you. MLA Robichaud?
Thank you. It's very evident that it's crucial to have this in place so that we can keep attracting these surgeons. So how does the province's robotics program compare to what's available in other Canadian jurisdictions?
Ms. MacGibbon?
Yeah, I think we've demonstrated that we are leading the country. Dr. Bailey mentioned earlier that we weren't first with respect to acquiring a Da Vinci, but what we have achieved since acquiring the Da Vinci and the Mako and the Mazar, and we have ROSA for epilepsy, we have a robotics program that's now creating the ability for us to enable first, like we've seen with spine surgery, like we've seen with joint arthroplasty. So we know that as it relates to where we are in the country, we're certainly not behind. We weren't the first to acquire, but we've caught up quickly. And I think it's the momentum that we've created now that causes Dr. Bailey and Dr. Darling to say what they say about the next, because we want to ensure that we use the Center of Excellence to create a blueprint of, you know, it's not that there isn't examples from lots of other jurisdictions that we can rely on to understand where's the biggest benefit. And if that aligns with what we have for demand in Nova Scotia, that would obviously give us an area that we need to be moving to next and give us more of an easier way of prioritizing the specialties or the areas that we want to now have as part of the robotics program.
Thank you. MLA Robichaud?
Thank you. So we've touched on this a bit, but if we could just go further. So how does robotic surgery affect patient recovery time and length of hospital stay compared to traditional surgical approaches?
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, so we've been able to collect some of that data. It reduces the stay in hospital, so the how many days a patient stays in hospital afterwards. We've shown it's reduced the need for narcotic analgesics or painkillers after surgery, and that's been tracked. Blood transfusions, pain scores in general, and also a return of function. So return to work is quicker because there's less pain. You get back on your feet quicker, and then the functional outcomes and the cancer outcomes is very important as well. So it wouldn't all make sense if the outcomes were not better from a cancer point of view. And for the majority of procedures that we do, the research shows that the outcomes from cancer are superior as well. So all of those some of those are not measurable by dollars and cents. Some of those are tangible, and some of them are intangible benefits to both the patient and the institution. And there's also a benefit to the surgeons. If you could see the surgeon do the surgery the old way, which is leaning over someone, turning, for several hours, versus sitting in a chair like this, in sock feet and hands with music on, doing the surgery, it has significantly improved the comfort level for the surgeons, and that's translated into longevity of surgical lifespan. I've had 2 back surgeries. I'm sure it's because of the surgeries I was doing. That's been looked at. So, that's a benefit that we don't think about to the surgeon themselves.
Thank you. MLA Robichaud?
Oh, that's an excellent point. I've never thought about that. What has been the most significant lesson learned since 2019, and how has that shaped how the program has grown?
Dr. Bailey?
I think we underestimated when we were looking at the volume of cases that we thought we were going to do, and we did a 5-year plan and we budgeted out 5-year plan. The person who put this all together, Joanne Dunnington, who's in the back, well, we went through that in about 3 years because of centralization of care. And it was an eye-opener for us that, like I said earlier, when you introduce this kind of life-changing, career-changing innovation into healthcare in a region like ours, it grows, and we have to grow with it. So one of the biggest things I think from that I've learned is the frustration of the demand coming because we brought it on ourselves and not be able to respond quickly. To get the second robot on site, it took a long time in my opinion, it took too long. There was too much red tape to get this thing in. Now we need a third one and a fourth one, and I don't want to wait another 2 and 4 and 5 years because the patients are sitting on the doorstep now. So that was the biggest thing I think I've learned.
Ms. MacGibbon with 30 seconds remaining.
I think we've mentioned a number of times how transformative and how innovative this is, and I think what it's created for us is it's really, I would describe it as disciplined innovation, because we've done so with a structure in mind and not just haphazardly introducing without thinking about all of the dimensions of value and the opportunity to spread and scale this across Nova Scotia in a sensible way.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll wrap it up. There's only 5 seconds remaining, so we'll bring that to a close. Is there any closing remarks? Anyone would like to provide closing remarks? Ms. MacGibbon?
Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to the many advancements being made through surgical robotics, the strength of our new Centre of Excellence in Robotics and what that brings to Nova Scotia, all of Nova Scotia, and our goals for continued expansion. As healthcare leaders and providers, we bear a great responsibility for providing the best possible care and service to the patients and communities we all serve. And as demand for healthcare continues to grow, we know we must make the best use of our time, resources, and expertise while continuing to provide high-quality care. It is clear from the information that we presented today that robotics-assisted surgeries have and will serve as a key role in supporting these goals, and as Dr. Darling said, they're not going anywhere. Few changes in healthcare have captured the attention and excitement that we are experiencing with robotics, and for good reason. Robotic technologies are equipping our teams to provide patients with better outcomes, a better quality of life, and in some cases, making surgery and recovery options that wouldn't otherwise exist. We are immensely proud of the results we have achieved, and for our patients, our province, and for the entire health system. Ultimately, this is not simply an investment in technology, it's an investment in our patients, our healthcare professionals, and the future capacity of the entire health system in Nova Scotia. We look forward to continuing our work with your support.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your time here this afternoon, and you'll be able to thank you for coming, and you can leave now. We'll take a 5-minute break before we do or a 3-minute break.
No committee.
There's no committee business, so we're good? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh, I should have done that.
That's okay.